Hey everyone, welcome to the Silicon Alley Podcast. I'm your host, William Glass, and on the Silicon Alley Podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs as their journeys are unfolding and dive deep into the mindset of each entrepreneur we speak with. And today's episode is a super special one. I'm really excited to have two fabulous young entrepreneurs that are absolutely crushing it right now. They found something that they're really passionate about, the ocean, and turned it into not only a business, but a sustainable business with a strong mission behind it. So I'm super, super excited to share my conversation with Christina Firestone and Hannah Patten, co-founders of Hülya Swim. I got to catch up with them as they were preparing for Surf Expo in Orlando. So I hope that you enjoy today's conversation with Christina and Hannah.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find, holding a hope and it'll only keep you on the outside.
Let's jump into it. So Hannah, Christina, thanks for joining me on the Silicon Alley Podcast. Really excited to talk to you both today and hear a little bit more about what you guys are doing at Hülya Swim.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, Christina was working on a boat as a dive master, and she convinced me that it was time to get my scuba certification. And I went down to West Palm Beach and got my scuba certification with her. And after that dive, one of my first dives, I recognized that there was a serious problem that not a lot of people saw. And I told her that I wanted to do something and I thought that we could do it together. And she got on her computer and started researching, and we found this incredible fabric that we use from Italy that's made from recycled ghost nets, which are incredibly detrimental to our ocean because they capture and entangle thousands of marine species a year. And so we've started this little company that we've fallen madly in love with, and the mission and everything we're doing is completely from our heart and from us just wanting to save the planet.
That's awesome. So how'd you guys actually meet then?
Yeah, so we actually met a long time ago. We both used to show horses competitively, and we were competing on the same show circuit all around America, and ended up meeting while riding horses and just became best friends. And we sort of both quit the sport around the same time and tried to find what our real passions were and kind of explore what life had to offer. And we both fell in love with the ocean and just continued on our friendship through what we're doing now.
That's awesome. I love that you've tied in your love for the ocean as well as wanting to, make an impact and save the ocean through the business that you're building. So what led you from going from seeing this problem, getting scuba certified together, and then saying, you know what, we need to protect the oceans. There's something wrong here, and what can we do to help? So what was that process like?
So I've always wanted to do something with the ocean. I work on a boat every day and I see it firsthand and everything. And being able to introduce Hannah to it was awesome. But we wanted to make an easy way for people to go eco-friendly, because a lot of times people are like, you need to change your whole life. And in today's day and age, that's really difficult to do. It's not easy. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes and have to use plastics and stuff like that. So we really wanted to find an easy way for somebody to feel like they are helping make a difference. And I was thinking about it and I was like, I have so many bikinis in my closet. And I was like, that's such an easy way. I wear it to work every day on the boat. And if that's just one article of clothing I can change, we can get everybody to change one article of clothing. That's a big impact when you think of it on a big scale. One bikini can be thousands of bikinis, and it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about starting the business early on, but what's the process of going from, hey, we've got this idea, to actually starting Hülya?
Yeah, so there was a lot of pre-planning stages that went into it. Christina and I spent a lot of time. Our first meeting that we ever did She drove up to my college apartment in Winter Park at Rollins College, and we sat on the floor in my living room and we just sketched hundreds of different designs that we would want to do. And I remember that day vividly. It was like the first day we ever got a chance to work on it. And then that following summer, I worked as an intern at Massachusetts General Hospital in the development office. So I had a lot of free time on my hand there. So I was able to do a lot of backhand work. So I taught myself how to build the website. I taught myself how to do a little bit of coding while I was working at the hospital. There was people there who helped teach me, and I was sharing my story along the way, and people kind of just left and right jumped on board with us and believe in us and our mission and our brand. And it's become a big collaboration through all different levels. And I think it's people really believing in us is what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like you guys have built a really huge following, and the brand has the mission at its heart, which I think speaks to a lot of younger folks. And it sounds like the demographic that you guys are going after. So what's it like as an entrepreneur? So Christina, you're still working on the boat right now. And Hannah, I know you're still in school. So what's it like right now building the business while having these other things going on?
Well, it's definitely not easy. I can tell you that. You have to have a lot of dedication. I think it's helped a lot that we are such good friends to where we motivate each other because we have our dream and know what we want it to be. And every day, I mean, you come home from work or you come home from school and you're tired and you're just like, oh, I'll work on this project tomorrow. But then you remember, you're like, well, do I want to still be in the same spot in 5 years, or do I want to be running my own company and not having to have another part-time job? And having each other has really been able to push us forward and keep on going. And it's not easy work, but it's definitely rewarding. So it feels really good to be doing what we're doing.
And I think for me, being able to still be in college and using the resources I have in my college at Rollins to help build this brand. Actually, at my school, Rollins hosts a sustainable fashion show, and I've decided that we entered Hlya in it, and I called one of my really good friends. His name Jad Sad. He's a really great up-and-coming performer, and I was like, do you want to perform on stage while I have models walk in a bikini? He was like, of course I do. That's not even a question. And so now we are able to be exposed to having our first runway show before, hopefully it's at Swim Week is our first really big one, but we're able to have these mentors at my school who are helping us and guiding us and giving us tips and tricks along the way that we wouldn't really been able to find out on our own. And I think a lot of people don't realize how great of a resource their school is for wanting to start a company, especially at a smaller college like Rollins. I have very personal connections with a lot of my professors, and they've all become very involved in helping create Hlya into what it is today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like that you're able to tap into the resources, because a lot of folks might think, hey, I'm still in school, I can't start a business, or I'm working full time on a boat and I'm out and I can't really take calls or things like that while I'm out on the water. So it sounds like you guys have been able to really tap into the resources that you have.
Exactly. And I think Christina and I have become really good at being able to work on the road, being able to take calls. We've done a podcast and she's called in from the boat before, and which was pretty funny. Or there's times when she can't make it because she's underwater, or there's times I can't make it, so she picks up the phone. And we've really created an amazing partnership. And I know some people say don't work with your best friend, but I think they're wrong.
I love that. It's something that one of my really good friends and I are working on, the company Ostrich that we're working on together. And it's the same thing. I think that there's a lot of bad advice out there. So you've got to find what works for you. And it sounds like you two have found that. What's the dynamic between you two as co-founders?
So we definitely both have strengths and weaknesses. And a lot of the times it'll be one of us kind of will slack off, will get busy, and then the other one's got to be like, hey, you need to get to work, or you need to get back on this, or finish this project. And so that's kind of nice, because we also, being friends, you can kind of get after one another a little bit, and it's still light and nice, and it's not like somebody's in charge of somebody else. We're both in charge of each other, and a lot of the times we're not in the same city, so that makes it difficult. We do a lot of rapid fire texting when we want somebody else's attention, but a lot of the times it's just email threads, and we'll share like documents online to where we could both log in from different cities or states and both work on a project at the same time together. So the internet is a magical place for that, and we definitely appreciate it.
And I think one thing that makes our partnership so special is that we're going into an event like Surf Expo this week that's huge to go to. All the largest swimwear brands are going to be here, but it's something that I'm with my best friend, and she knows what makes me anxious, and I know what makes her anxious, and I know what makes her tick, and she knows what makes me tick. So we're able to push each other's strengths and kind of play on that to make it create a very, very successful company. And I think by doing that, it creates us as better business people and just wholehearted people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses is definitely a help in making sure that you guys know that you work well together. You've been friends for a long time. So that definitely, I'm sure, helps the relationship
and
the
think
business
the
overall.
a big key point to that, not only knowing your business partner's strengths and weaknesses, but knowing your own as well, and being able to take that step back and being like, oh, this is not something I'm very good at, so why don't you take control over this detail? And you have to know when to pass on a project or to ask for help from somebody else instead of wanting to do it all on your own. And that's where Hannah and I are very comfortable with each other, and we can ask one another like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and we help each other out.
Absolutely. Do you have an example of something recent where you went through that?
I actually have a really good one. When we were actually planning everything for Surf Expo, I'm really good at making things on the computer. Like, I don't know how I got the skill or where it came from, but it's just been something that I'm really good at, and I can do design really well on the computer. And I don't think I've ever seen Christina design something on a computer. No offense, I love you to death. But so I was able to make like all the brochures and the pamphlets and everything that we probably would have had to pay a designer, like an online designer, to do for us. So I think stuff like that, and other things like Christina's a way better free diver than I am. So when we do underwater photo shoots, she's usually the one who goes under and gets the big photos and does that stuff. So we definitely have very vast strengths and weaknesses, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot. So what's been the biggest adjustment to having your own business?
I think for me, in general, like, I think knowing, like, for me, homework, I know there's a due date, and I just have to have it done by that due date. With the company, there's a due date. There's always a due date. But since it's my company, like, I can kind of push that due date back if I really wanted to. But like Christina said earlier, do you really want to be where you are in the next 5 years, or do you want to be successful? So it's kind of that like battle in your head where you finish 6 hours of homework, and then now you have to do another 6 hours of work on your company. So it's kind of that mental battle of, what do I really want?
Mine's pretty much a very similar answer to that with work and everything, but I think also is just really believing in yourself too, because a lot of times when you start your own company, especially as a young entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of people that question if you can do it or not, and you have to just block those people out and not let them get in your head, and you have to be like, no, I can do this, and kind of prove everybody wrong. So definitely when you run into that battle, I've seen it a little bit, and it's tough, because then you start to question yourself, and then you just have to go back to what you want to do and keep on pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Do you have any tips for how you combat that kind of negativity?
I think that a lot of it comes from being a bit of a competitive person. I grew up as an athlete, so it sounds silly, but a lot of times when somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm going to work a lot harder till I can get it done. And I'm just trying to take the negative energy and kind of prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, that competitiveness definitely is an aspect of business, and being able to use that and drive that forward is huge.
For sure.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the mission. How did you both go from riding horses and competitively to falling in love with the ocean, and what's the mission behind the company?
So we both grew up in South Florida around the water, so we always kind of had it be a part of our lives. And it just was a little bit of a place of home for us after we quit the horses. I mean, when you quit something you've done for so long, you feel a little lost in the beginning. So I think we both stayed around the ocean and tried to find our way in that route. And once we kind of figured out what we wanted to do and we wanted to make a difference, and going through all the pieces of how we would do that and everything, coming up with a company, I mean, we want to be successful. We want to make a company, be successful and everything, but we also want to do our part and educate other people. So whether you're going to buy a bikini or not, you're going to hear our mission and you're going to hear what we're about. So we want to clean the ocean. We want people to be aware of products they're using and be aware that maybe if you just do 5 more minutes of research, you might find the same product you're looking for, but in a little bit more sustainable fashion. So it might not be our company, but it gives people the idea of maybe if they're making bikinis, somebody else is making what I'm looking for.
So one of the things that is a focus of this podcast specifically is finances and talking about money a little bit. So I want to talk and understand a little bit about what both your relationship is with money.
Yeah, so for me, I'm very fortunate. I come from an entrepreneurial family. So my spirit of wanting to start my own company fired a flame in my dad's eyes, and he's all for it. So he's a huge backer of Hlya, and he believes in the mission, and my family supports it immensely to Earth's End. And I think Christina and I are both very blessed that our family looks at entrepreneurialism in the same way as we do.
Yeah, I think that's huge, having that support system, and especially if you can get some seed capital starting off is huge. But what about in your personal life? How would you describe your personal relationship with money? And I want to understand how that changed or might have changed as an entrepreneur specifically.
I think growing up in the horse world, money is a completely different concept in a way. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but the horse world is a totally different bubble. And I think that it exposed us to learning a lot and learning the value of money and how much something is truly worth. And I think that was a really valuable lesson. And I think through my personal transition into the oceanic surfing world, I think my position on money is stayed the same. And I think my understanding and the value of money has gone up with learning about the environment and learning about where our money can be going and what we can be doing with it. And if we are spending our money on sustainable items and sustainable companies, then in the end, we're really doing something good for the planet.
Yeah, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. And I think seeing money as a way, not as a tool, in a way to you can use it, right? When you're talking about if you're going to buy a bikini, you have the option of purchasing something that could do something beyond just providing you a good looking swimsuit. It could be also saving the ocean and the things that you want to enjoy in said bikini.
Exactly.
Tell me about future Hannah and future Christina.
We are aiming to grow the business, be able to hire on some people to help us out. Obviously, we want the business to do well. We want to expand. We definitely have dreams of going in some different directions with the company. We're definitely going to keep doing bikinis, but we want to eventually do more traveling and experiences as well. Eventually, obviously, be able to use the business to incorporate all different kinds of things to show people about what they can do with conservation as well. We want to eventually start our own nonprofit. We do donate 1% of our profits to Coral Restoration Foundation currently, and we love what they do. They're making new corals and planting them in the reef systems down in Key West and all throughout the Keys. And eventually we want to start something on our own and go down that road and everything like that.
And I think as for me, like Christina said, I would love to continue to grow the company. Something Christina didn't mention is we are working on a men's line, so we want to move in that direction as well. Hopefully we can move into some different clothing items and really give people a large selection of eco-friendly products to choose from, I think is kind of my vision and my goal. And when people think of eco-friendly products, I want people to think of Hülya.
Perfect. So what advice do you have for others who might want to follow in your footsteps?
Never give up, no matter how sticky the situation gets.
I would say to start, because I think that's the hardest part about it, is when to say, okay, I'm ready. Start it. And then, because once you start, you got to keep going, and you can plan as much as you possibly can, but just be aware things are going to change. So you have to go ahead and start where you want to and take things as they come.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people get caught in, the analysis paralysis, thinking about, well, I've got to think about every possibility of how am I going to do X and Y and Z, and they get so overwhelmed that they never actually start anything.
Exactly.
So I really
it's
love
the
that advice.
scariest part of the process, and you can go on in circles and drive yourself a little crazy throughout it. So you just got to pull the trigger and keep going and take things as they come, one step at a time.
And so I'll transition now into some rapid fire questions.
Okay,
So
awesome.
what would you say is the best investment you've ever made?
The stock market. I know that's such a cliche answer, but my dad always was kicking me in the butt for a really long time about starting to invest in the stock market, and I finally did, and now I love it.
That's awesome. What specifically have you been investing in?
I like to sell calls and puts. Specifically, that's pretty much all I really like to do.
Nice. Christina, did you want to add into that as well?
I think my career, really, because I invested a lot of money into getting certifications. I had to get a lot of different kinds of certifications for scuba diving and everything, and it really changed my life for the better.
Love that, investing in yourself. What's the best and the worst part of entrepreneurship?
The best part is getting to have all these incredible experiences like Surf Expo and Miami Swim Week, and being able to meet all the people we've been able to meet and share our story, I think has been the best part. And the worst part is jet lag and lack of sleep.
Perfect. Any additions there, Christina, or did Hannah hit it on the head?
I think she pretty much covered that whole one.
Awesome. What would you say is the dumbest money mistake you've made?
I have to say, moving out of my parents' house before I was ready, probably the worst mistake I ever made, thinking I knew it all and I was going to get my first apartment and not understanding how much money it was actually going to cost me. If your parents say you're free to live at home for a little while longer, you should definitely take them up on the offer.
I love that. Yeah, rent's expensive. Rent is expensive.
It is.
What would you say is the most frivolous way you've spent money in the past?
Oh, definitely on my scuba gear.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely on that stuff.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge facing everyday Americans when it comes to finances?
I think in a sense of something that Christina and I see every day is finding sustainable products that are also affordable.
Or just getting trapped by, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, or you have this that already works, but we made a new model and it's better. If not everybody needs 50 pairs of shoes, or that's just an example. I think people get just consumed by all the new shiny new things coming out on the market instead of really seeing what they have and what they need for everyday life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love those answers. The sustainability piece, being able to have options that are more sustainable, and then, the having all sorts of different products, and you need to get the latest model of the iPhone or this or that. And those are good ones. Advice you'd give your 13-year-old selves?
I would tell myself that horseback riding is not going to be your entire world. Because I was convinced I was going to the Olympics when I was 13, and my life is completely different than what I expected it to be.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think I'd tell my 13-year-old self that the world is a lot bigger and to value experiences more than anything else in life. You can always remember an experience you had with somebody or an adventure you took or something like that more than something materialistic.
Absolutely. I completely agree and love that. And I think that's part of the Hülya brand, right? Is focusing on the experience, and long term, it sounds like that's something that you guys want to get into more.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Well, is there anything else that you two want to make sure that we cover, and anything else that you want to tell the audience?
No, I don't have anything.
No, just thank you so much for having us on and letting us share our story. We really appreciate it and love talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great conversation, and I'm excited about what you guys are building, and I'm excited for the men's line personally, and excited to see what products you guys have. So yeah, where can folks find more about you too and about the brand?
Yeah, you can find more about us and Hülya at www.hulyaswim.com.
Yeah, well, Hannah, Christina, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and excited to see what all you guys accomplish in the next few years. So
Thank you
keep
so
up the
much.
good work.
much.
All right. So that wraps up my conversation with Hannah and Christina of Hülya Swim. As you can tell, these young women are absolutely crushing it right now, and super excited to see what all they accomplish and what all Hülya does, not only in terms of growth as a business, but also in terms of helping environmental sustainability. You can tell that the mission behind the business is super important at the core of everything that they do. I learned a ton from my conversation with them and really admire what they're building and what they're doing. I wish that I would have started something in college and had that courage to do what they've done and go solve a problem. So super, super excited to follow their journey. So that concludes today's episode of the Silicon Alley podcast. Please subscribe if you have not already, or follow us depending on which platform you're listening on. And be sure to spread the Silicon Alley podcast with others that you think would get value from it. And if you have a guest that you think would be really interesting to speak with, send them our way. Signing off for the Silicon Alley podcast, I'm your host, William Glass. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks for listening.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find, holding a hope and it'll only keep you on the outside.
Special thanks to Brett Miller for providing his song Million Voices as the theme music to this podcast. Special thanks to Carolina Gankars for help directing. And thank you for listening. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or future guests to appear on the Silicon Alley podcast, follow us on social media and shoot us a message at Silicon Alley Podcast on all the socials. Twitter, it's at Silicon Alley Pod. Thanks so much for listening. This is a Financial Glass production. Here's a sneak peek into next week's episode.
So many of us at that company descend on Houston, Texas, which is where we are located, and go to annual reunion parties. And all we could do is reminisce at these parties how awesome it was to be part of something so special. We learned so much, and we created bonds that will last the rest of our lives. Not one single day felt like work.
New episodes every Friday.